All right, today we're talking about the financial mistakes a lot of us make in our 20s, but we're not just going to list them. We're going to put a price tag on them. And trust me, it's way, way higher than you think. So let's just jump right in with a question. We all know we mess up with money when we're young, right? But what do you think that actually costs over a lifetime? Seriously, just take a guess. Think of a number. The answer, according to our source material, over $1 million. And look, this isn't some random made-up number. This is the actual calculated cost of the mistakes the author made himself, all compounded over time. And that's exactly what we're going to break down. So why the 20s? Why is that decade so insanely critical? Well, it all boils down to one simple, incredibly powerful force: time. Because of compound interest, your 20s are your single highest leverage financial decade. The math is simple, and as you're about to see, it is absolutely brutal. I mean, just look at this. This is the cost of waiting just one decade. You invest $5,000 at age 25, and by the time you retire, it could grow to over $226,000. But if you wait until you're 35, that exact same $5,000 is worth less than $90,000. That's over 60% of your potential wealth just gone. Poof! All because you waited 10 years. So that brings us to the first, and honestly the easiest type of mistake to make: the mistake of inaction. These are the financial wounds that are totally self-inflicted, just by doing nothing at all. This quote just nails the first big mistake: ignoring your employer's 401k match. You know, he saw it as giving up cash he needed right then and there. Cash that, looking back, he admits was just spent on stuff he doesn't even remember. So here's the crazy trade-off he didn't realize he was making at the time. The short-term gain? It was tiny, a few extra bucks in his pocket. But the long-term cost? He gave up what was literally free money, which would have grown to almost $400,000. The key takeaway here is huge. An employer match isn't a bonus, it's part of your salary that you only get if you actually save. So why do we do this? Why is this such a common trap? Well, it comes down to a glitch in our brains called temporal discounting. Our brains are basically hardwired to value rewards now. A future fortune just feels kind of abstract, right? But that extra cash in your next paycheck, that feels very, very real. It's a mental trap we have to consciously fight against. All right, so that was about doing nothing. Now let's talk about the price of doing the wrong thing. These are the mistakes of action, the choices we make that actively torch our wealth. Okay, this one is a monster. In his 20s, the author financed a new car. The payment was $463 a month. It felt manageable. But the opportunity cost, oh man, it was catastrophic. If he had invested that exact same money, instead of dumping it into an asset that loses value every day, it could have grown to over $900,000. Think about that for a second. One decision, a nearly $1 million swing. That's insane. And of course, we have to talk about credit card debt. This is another big mistake of action, and it's made so much worse by a psychological trick called minimum payment anchoring. The company set this ridiculously low minimum payment on purpose. It anchors your brain, so you feel good about paying a little more than the minimum, all while that crushing 21% interest is just silently eating your future alive. Okay, this next one is sneaky. It's one of the most subtle mistakes you can make. It's not about debt, it's about what happens when you actually get a raise. It's the problem of lifestyle inflation, where you start earning more money, but somehow you're not getting any wealthier. How does that happen? Okay, look at the numbers here. In 5 years, his income jumped by more than 60%, from $42,000 to $68,000. That's a huge win, right? But his savings barely budged. His savings rate actually went down because almost all of that new income just got sucked into a more expensive lifestyle. So, What's going on in our brains here? It's something called hedonic adaptation. We humans are just amazing at getting used to things. That big raise, the nicer apartment, the fancier dinners, they feel great for a minute, but then it just becomes the new normal. The happiness fades, but those higher bills, they stick around for good. All right, I know this all sounds a little depressing, but here's the good news. This is where the story completely changes. Because avoiding all these mistakes, it is so much easier today than it was even a decade ago. You have a modern advantage. You literally have an entire toolkit at your fingertips. Automated investing platforms help you fight inaction by putting your savings on autopilot. Budgeting apps give you real-time tracking so you can see the lifestyle creep happening and stop it. Salary websites give you the data you need to argue for what you're worth. And high-yield savings accounts make sure every single dollar you have is working for you. The whole point is this. Technology lets you build systems to get around your own flawed human brain. Instead of relying on willpower, which we all know runs out, you can set it and forget it. You make good decisions the default. And that brings us right back to the most important thing, time. This quote just says it all. The difference between starting to get your act together at 23 versus 33 could be $1.5 million in lifetime wealth. It all comes back to that brutal, beautiful math of compounding. So we'll leave you with this. The math is crystal clear. Your 20s are your single most powerful, highest leverage financial decade. The foundation you build right now will determine pretty much everything that comes next. So, how are you going to use it?